don't understand it. You're changing, I can't stand it. My heart can't take this damage.
Around this long. If you haven't seen the previous videos, we talked about arrays and being able to interact with them, especially with nested arrays that have objects inside of them. We learned how to destructure. We did all that in the first video. And then in the second video, we learned about mutating arrays. We learned about how to not mutate the arrays and just build out a new array. We learned the goods and bads of it and why you should do it, or when you should do it, or when you shouldn't do it. So in this one, we're actually going to step in and manipulate it just a little bit more and just have a lot more fun with it. I think this is probably going to be my favorite subject. We're going to get to do things like sort things out. We're going to get to explore map a little bit more. Go into filter a little bit, and even go into one of my favorite ones, which I won't say right now, but I literally use this almost every day, and I've never used it up until I started working at this company that I'm at. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that none of this stuff here is sorted. An array, it is sorted by index. However, the items that are inside of this are not sorted at all. So like as far as the age is concerned, like it's just coming out random. Like this over here, I could easily just do something like users 0 dot ID equals 22. And if I console log users, so I'm going to see over here the ID is 22. And this number is obviously greater than 2 and 3, but it's still at the top, so it's not being sorted at all. So one way that we could do that is we could use JavaScript sorting method. I almost wrote JavaScript. But basically we would grab that array and then put in .sort. So .sort, if you look over here, it's a compare function, so it's a callback function that it takes, where it basically takes in the first object and then the next object, and you can see that it has all of the stuff in there. It has little curly brackets, which lets you know that it's an object, and it does what's called an in-place sorting. So you don't really need to know the full details of that. If you want to know more about it, and you go into the MDN page, it says in-place sorting, I think, and it even has a link for you to go into the Wikipedia and get all computer sciencey about it. We don't really need to know that for now. All you need to know is that it's going to mutate the original. So unless we put it into a variable, it's going to mutate this users, and we'll see that happen right now. So we can do something like, close this out now, whatever, I'll just leave that there. We can go to A and then B, and A is just going to be the first item, B is going to be the second item, and then we can do something here like that with our fat arrow. Now, if you don't know about ES6, I realize this is the third video and I haven't talked about it, but the little arrow over here is just kind of like a return statement. So it's kind of like returning the output. If you're just on one line, then this is good. If you're going to be writing anything that requires more than one line, then you'll need to use the curly brackets and then bring it down and then write all your code and stuff and then return something. So, but because we're only doing things in one line, we don't really need it. You can also keep these curly brackets here, but just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to do it like this, just as basic as possible. So A, if you hover over it again, A is an object that has these properties in it. If we hover over B, B is an object that also has these properties in it. So we need to compare those two values in order to sort. So there's two ways that we can actually sort an integer. So we're going to do it by age. So we could just go A dot age, and then we can do this greater than B dot age. So we could do that. Now it's not returning anything, so it's just like for each. Because it's not creating a new array, it's just using the old one and mutating that. Then we'll have to log it separately, and the way we do that is we log the actual users. And so looking at it now, we see that everything was sorted by age, so 31, 34, 44. Another thing that we can try, and we can see if this works together because I haven't actually bothered to try it, but I like to live dangerously, is we can try to sort by, I want to sort by job, actually. So let's see what happens if we try to sort by job. So if we do that there, let's see, QA guy gets moved to the top, and then we have dev in the middle, and manager down at the bottom. So that happens, and then we get to do some other cool stuff like this here. So we have manager there, dev moved to the middle, QA moved to the bottom, and then what happens if we try to subtract it? So if we try to subtract it, then we get dev over here, QA, and then manager. So strings can be a little bit crazy, and essentially what's happening is because we have the Q over here that's capitalized, we'll actually get a different response if we were to do something like this. So if we do something like that, and then I believe if we do this, and then we'll get it in order. So we get dev, manager, QA. And so the reason why it was doing that is because JavaScript essentially considers capitalized letters to have a higher value than the lowercase letters. So whenever you're sorting and you're sorting these kinds of values over here, it's probably a good idea to just put them both like lowercase. Say 2 lowercase, and then 2 lowercase. And what that does, it makes it so that if, let's say this is D, and then this is M again, so it doesn't really care about that anymore because it's only checking lowercase values anyway. So you can see that the Q is still capitalized because it's not returning anything different. It's just telling it that, oh, this over here at a lowercase compared to this at a lowercase is lower than that, so let's swap them. But it's not changing the actual values themselves. It's just changing the entire array, if that makes any sense. So keep that in mind when you're trying to sort out strings. Okay, so now that we got through that, I want to do something that's a little bit more fun. Actually, before we even get to the fun part, let's look at filter. So I think that we could use a small little example of what filter does. If you've never used it before, filter does exactly what you probably think it does. If you guess that it would filter things out, then you guessed right. So in this case, I want to be able to go through this entire array and match something against something in here. Let's say name. I want to be able to find Sandra. I don't know where she is on the list. I don't even know if she's in the list, but I want to be able to find her. So let's say users dot filter, and just like all the other ones, it takes in a nice little callback. And so we're going to pass it user, and then our little arrow function here, and then we're going to say user.name equals Sandra. And so we're going to get that there going. However, if you look down here, we're not just getting Sandra, we're still getting all the users. So filter does not mutate, or does not mutate the original, like sort would or something like that. It doesn't, or like sort or for each or whatever. So it doesn't mutate the original. It creates a new array very similar to how map does. So with that, what we can do is put that into a variable. So we can say const new users, and then we can return new users. If I could spell, there we go, new users. And so now we're getting back Sandra. So if I change that, now here's the thing though, what happens if I lowercase Sandra over here? So there is no lowercase version of Sandra. That's a whole different value. Like I said before when we were doing the sort, the JavaScript looks at the value of capitalized letters to be higher and different than lowercase letters. So again, we would have to fix that with a to lowercase. And then you can even do a to lowercase here as well. just to be sure in case you like type in something funny. So we could do something like that. Now Sandra is coming back and her name's still capitalized and everything. And that happens because filter doesn't mutate the original array of users. If filter did, then we would basically have a lowercase Sandra. Hey, thanks for watching this series. If it helped you out in any way, do me a favor and just like the video, subscribe, maybe even share it either on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. It'll help the channel out, and I'm going to be putting out some more videos in this series. So see you next time.